Welcome back to computer science stuff. Woohoo! I'm trying to come up with a new intro catchphrase. Give me feedback. I need a catchphrase. Here's what we want to do with this demo. I'd like to take the data from this PDF file, so Ninja with name and honor, 2 columns. It's a PDF document. There's sort of a table format here, but I only care about the text of the table. I don't care about the formatting information. So I just want to parse out the name of each ninja and their honor. And I want to turn that into instances of a class. So just a regular Java class, also known as a POJO, plain old Java object. Then I want to put that into a database table that we are going to create for this purpose. I also want to show off my ability to now try to use Chinese characters in these documents. Renju. I will work on that. Okay, so that's the PDF file. Now we need to process that PDF file. We need to be able to read it with Java code. How do we do that? I have no idea. So what did I do? I asked the Google. And where did the Google send me? Stack Overflow, where most programming questions can be answered. It pointed me to a library called Apache Tika. So here's the jar file for the library. Here's the source for it. And since I'm going to be putting things into a database, I also have the MySQL connector for Java. This is called JDBC, Java Database Connector. Now, here's the test PDF crawler code. I'm going to create an input stream. I'm going to connect it to that PDF file. Now, this is a relative path to the top level of this particular project. I'm able to use a relative path rather than absolute path because anytime you run code in an Eclipse project, it automatically starts running in the root folder of that project. So I can just say files, Ninja list. I don't have to try to figure out what the absolute path of that location would be. Other things of note, CS320 is this databases course, ORM Ninja example. The ORM stands for Object-to-Relational Database Mapping. This is a very, very common process. A lot of code is written in an object-oriented language, in an object-oriented style. So you have classes, and the classes are made up of a bunch of fields, and the classes also have methods. You need to map the data portion of that to a relational database because you need to save all the code, all the data that your object-oriented program is using to a more persistent piece of storage than memory or perhaps even to a file. So you're going to put it into a database, a relational database. So O for the object-oriented part, and M for the mapping, and R is the relational database part. We're mapping between those two things. So that's what the ORM stands for. It's a very, very, very common problem that needs to be solved with a variety of different languages and databases in between. So I checked Stack Overflow for how to read this PDF file in order to do this object-relational database mapping. Well, I need a content handler, I need a metadata, I need a PDF parser, I need a parse context. I tell the PDF parser to parse with these particular parameters. How do I know to do all that? Again, Stack Overflow. Checked it out on the Google, pointed me to Stack Overflow, got this little snippet of code. Perfect. Now what that does allows me to take the content handler, tell it to convert itself to a string, which gives me back the full text of that PDF document, just the string part of it, converted to a string. If there were images or something like that in there, it's unclear what this content handler would do, but since there aren't any images, or we don't mind skipping the images, for this particular example, and for the example that you'll be doing for your project, you actually don't care. So, who cares? Now what we want to do is we want to go through this line by line. We're going to take the full text as a string. We're going to invoke the split method. This is a standard method in the string class. It takes what's called a regular expression, which is a string that denotes a type of pattern. We don't really care about the pattern portion of it. We just want to give it a single character. So it's going to do the new line character. It's going to take the text of the document, which will just be a giant string with a bunch of enter keys kind of at the end of each line. It'll split that into an array of strings where each string represents a line. So basically this says, okay, take this multi-line string and convert it into an array of single lines, one for each line of the document. And this is a for each loop which says, okay, iterate over that. Now we're going to take line and assign it line.trim. If we look at the documentation for trim, returns a string whose value is this string with any leading and trailing white space removed. So this is going to strip the leading and trailing white space. If now the line equals empty, meaning all the line had on it was white space, we're going to go ahead and continue, and then just, which is just going to have the effect of going over the next line. Otherwise, go ahead and print out the line. And at the bottom of this, we're going to tell the input stream to make sure that we close it. Now, this can throw an I/O exception. Do I care? No, because if I try to close the stream and I can't close the stream, well, what can I possibly do at that point? Normally, when you get an exception, you want to clean up any resources you have if you're going to have to crash out of the program. Well, I'm trying to close the only resource I have, which is an input stream. I failed to do that. There's nothing else I could do. I could try to close it again, but I just tried to close it. Who cares? So we're just going to throw what's called a lazy exception. We're going to have the main method just throw this exception so that if any exception happens in here, whether it's checked or unchecked, we don't really care. It'll just crash main, which is fine. That's the correct behavior at this point. There's no reason to catch this exception. I can't do anything with it. You should never catch an exception if you don't have a clear idea of what you would do with that exception. Otherwise, you're just asking for trouble. Okay, so let's run this and see what it does. So we've got the first line, we've got this header line, we've got the ninjas. But look at this. Shouldn't this be getting stripped out? Apparently it's not. We're doing trim. You would think that would remove leading and trailing white space, but it isn't. So what we need to do is somehow get this line out. Now, in order to do that, we need to figure out, well, where is it? First thing I'm going to do, I want to get, well, actually, let's do it this way. I'm going to take full text, I'm going to split it based on the new lines, and I'm going to print, I think, it looks like this should be line 0, this should be line 1. I'm going to check to see if that's what I've got. So I'm going to split and print out line 1. System.out.println, and let's see if that's the right line. Oh, it doesn't look like it. It looks like line 1 is this. So there must be, it must think that there's like an empty line before that or something like that. So it looks like it's probably line 2. And actually, I'll put some extra stuff in here, just so that I know which print statement it is. Okay, good. This looks like that magic character that I don't really know what the heck it is. So that's fantastic. This is getting me that. So now I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm actually going to change this from a print line to a printf. So I'm splitting this into a bunch of lines. I'm getting the second line. Well, now what I want to do is get the character at position 0. So I want the first character. And I actually want its ASCII value. So I'll now convert this to int. Actually, I'll make this back to a print line. Great. Okay, let's see what we get. Should be right up at the top. 160. So I'm pretty sure that that weird character that I don't know what it is ASCII value 160. So that's what I'm doing. I'm saying take the full text of the document, which is separated by new lines, split it up into an array of strings based on where the new lines are, take the second element, element 0, 1, 2, and then get the very first character of that, and then let me know what its ASCII value is. When you take a character and you cast it to an int, it gives you the ASCII value, 160. What the heck is ASCII 160? I have no idea. Luckily, I looked up my ASCII table. Here it is. ASCII 160 is a non-breaking space, NBSP. Apparently, that doesn't get removed when you trim off the white space, so it must not be treated as a white space character. So I'm going to have to do something else to remove it. Now, I don't know how to remove a non-breaking space, so I'm going to ask Google, Java. Oh, you can see I actually do know how to do it because I just Googled it a little while ago. I'm just going to reuse my search here. Stack Overflow. I'm pretending I don't know how to do it, but this is my second cut at this video. And so NBSP, that is in fact what we're running into. Perfect. How do we remove it? They said they tried this. It didn't work. We would like, well, we got two possible solutions. I'll do this one. This looks like the Unicode value. I'm just going to copy this part in here, come back over here. Now we'll just say line equal line dot replace that with that. So we're saying replace this Unicode value with the empty string. We're going to run, and then I don't need this anymore if the next line there works. Let's see what we got. Okay, bam. It looks like it removed that line. So that is fantastic. Perfect. So now what I want to do with each of these lines is I want to split it up into the name and the honor. And then I want to stick that information into an instance of a Ninja class, which I can then insert into a table of the database. So first thing we need to do is figure out when we're looking at ninjas and when we're looking at preliminary stuff before the ninjas. Well, we know that it starts when we see this. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create this variable here, Boolean start, and initially false. We haven't started yet. Don't start. Now we're going to say if line dot starts with oh, I need quotes around that, don't I? Name, honor. Then start is true, and I can continue. Remember, continue just says go back up to the top of the loop and go to the next iteration. So it basically goes to the next line. So now down here I'll say if start, in other words, if we've already seen this the first time, in other words, we've seen this line already. Now what I want to do is split this information up. Well, I know how to split things. I'll say into a string array. I'm going to call it tokens. When we do a lot of splitting and parsing and splitting up of information, a common thing to call the stuff we've split something into are tokens. So split this up into tokens. I'm going to say take line and do a split. And what do I want to split based on? Well, I want to split based on white space. Now there's a cool trick I can do, since this is what we call a regular expression. If you take automata theory, you'll learn about the theoretical concept that underlies regular expressions. It's called a deterministic finite automata, DFA. Regular expressions are an implementation of that pertain to strings in programming languages. It's a very, very, very powerful concept for parsing and other kinds of text processing and text manipulation. It's very commonly used outside of computer science by people who program but aren't necessarily up on a lot of other things. When you talk to people in other fields, a lot of times they want to know all about regular expressions. If you're teaching programming for non-majors, and the non-majors tend to be physicists or bioinformatics people, often they want to know more about regular expressions. How can they process text? Here we go. So we're going to split this whack whack s plus. So whack is like another term for a backslash. So the slash slash here, we can't use one slash because that has a special meaning in Java. That means that the next character is special. Well, it's not the s that's special, it's the slash that's special, so we do slash slash s. Slash slash s, this is a special sequence for regular expressions, which means any whitespace character. I've already verified that that doesn't include non-breaking spaces, or I could have used it up here, such as life. The plus means one or more of these things. It looks like everything in here just has one space, but it might not always necessarily have one space, and it's always safest just to use this plus because that means one or more. You'll be able to use this in your assignment and kind of use this all over the place. So we'll split this up into tokens. Now what I want to do is get out the name. So I'll say name is tokens of 0, and I want to get out the honor. I'll say int honor equal tokens of 1. But I can't just do tokens of 1 because that's a string. So I need to look inside the integer class and see if there's something for parsing. Looks like there is. Great. Now I want to make sure that that looks right, so I'm going to do a printf. I'm going to say %s, %d, new line. Now the %s is the name, the %d is the honor. And of course, once again, this is a lot easier than putting a lot of pluses into your print statements. These printfs, this is a formatting sequence that I think was originally used for C in the early 70s. You just kind of write out the string you want with these special % placeholders. %s means string, %d means digit, which is basically integer. %f would be a floating point or double precision floating point number. So if this works, oh, and then I don't need to print the line anymore. If this works, we should get just the name and the honor for each of these. Let's see what we've got. Fantastic. That totally worked. Awesome. I'm going to call this video part 1. We are now able to parse the PDF file. We can read it with this library for PDF parsing. We've got a little bit of code in here to figure out when the ninjas start. Once the ninjas start, we're able to figure out the name and the honor, store those in variables. Now, of course, the next step in part 2, we're going to take the name and the honor, we're going to put those into a class for ninjas that we're going to write. We're going to create our database table for ninjas. Then we're going to write the JDBC, Java Database Connector code, which allows us to put SQL commands into our Java to insert our ninjas into the database table that we're about to create. So tune in next time and we'll do all of that and probably more.